episode of Off the Shelf is brought to us by Busy Bee Vegan Skincare. Busy Bee is an all-natural skincare line dedicated to healthy, vegan, plant-based skincare and overall wellness. They offer a selection of handcrafted body scrubs, butters, and washes that not only make your skin glow but smell amazing. Their unique all-natural scents include gingerbread, ruby grapefruit, caramel cake, and morning latte. So why not treat your skin to something fresh and all-natural? Head on over to shopbusybeevegan.com today. And as a special bonus, Busy Bee is offering listeners of this podcast a 15% discount on your first order with the code OrdinaryPodcasts. Thanks for listening and enjoy this week's episode of Off the Shelf. Hello everyone, welcome to Off the Shelf, the book podcast where we take books off of our shelves and into our hearts. My name is Julia, and today, as you're probably aware, is the start of a new month, which means it's time for two things. Firstly, flip your calendar. I'm notoriously horrible for remembering to do this, and if I don't do it within the first 3 days of the month, you better believe it's going to stay on the month before until at least the 15th. I've started trying to buy calendars with either really funny or really beautiful images, so hopefully I remember that at the start of a new month I get a brand new laugh or some new destination to add to my travel dreams. To be honest, it hasn't always been fully successful, but I'm trying to train myself. I'll get there by the same time that I remember at the start of a new year to always write the new year properly instead of writing the previous year out of habit. We all have our challenges, and don't try to tell me you've never had this problem. I refuse to believe that anyone is so far evolved from everyone else. Anyway, I went off a bit there as usual. December. Crazy holiday time for the retailers, for the students in final season, for parents and kids and families and teachers and airlines. As we come into the holiday season, I hope you also get some extra minutes to do the things you love. And I hope that one of the things you love is reading for fun. Christmas breaks during uni were always in part my dedicated reading for fun time, until I marathoned through a couple of reads and tired myself out of it. Sometimes I even worked myself into a bit of a slump, which wasn't so great. I'd prepare myself all semester for that freedom to get back to my TBR list, and I'd never get far enough into it to make a big difference. But it was always a good time, if a fleeting one. However, this holiday season, if you're looking for something to read or struggling to get into something, then look no further. Getting back to the second reason why the start of the month is significant to us, it's time for a new book club read announcement. This month, the book I've picked out for us to share reading is actually a short collection of autobiographical essays, titled Sometimes I Trip on How Happy We Could Be, written by writer, poet, academic, podcaster, and activist Nichole Perkins. This is a 2021 release written mostly during the course of the pandemic, and it takes on a lot of different topics concerning life, pop culture, womanhood, stereotypes, race, mental health, disabilities and ableism, and relationships and sexuality. The book has been called, quote, necessary, urgent, and so beautiful by fellow writer-activist Jesmyn Ward, and poignant, timely, and a lot of fun to read by Ashley C. Ford, another fellow author. The essays in this collection are wide-reaching, and so for my talks I'll probably be honing on just a couple of them that really speak to me and where I'm at, and branch out from there. But I encourage you, if you decide to pick up the book, to read what interests you. I will offer a brief disclosure and maybe a warning to you, and just say that this book is open and honest and raw about a great many topics. Some of the essays include quite sexually explicit content and language, and I know that isn't everyone's cup of tea to read. And some pieces are also quite honest about drug use, cheating, depression, and suicide. And to a lesser concern, to put it plainly, Perkins, as she should, has some hard-lined opinions about a lot of things. The book also doesn't hold its tongue on differentiating where the line is drawn between sexual consent and harassment, abuse, and assault. I've read a lot of reviews from people saying that this book made them laugh and cry, and blush and gasp, get angry and set it down, and maybe come back for more. It's not an easy read by any means, but there's a lot here, a lot of things that need to be said, and if anyone's got the guts to say them, it's Nichole Perkins. I'll give you the dust jacket description to start us off. Quote, Nichole Perkins is the woman you want to tell you everything about her life, your life, pop culture, sexuality, and more. In Sometimes I Trip on How Happy We Could Be, she takes readers on a rollicking trip through media and the internet from the perspective of one bold Southern Black woman. covering everything from Miss Piggy to First Kisses to the incomparable Janet Jackson and the pages of Fet Life. She explores the difficulty of navigating relationships and stereotypes with powerful intimacy and a questioning gaze. In doing so, she humorously and powerfully illuminates how to take the best life has to offer and discard the harmful bits, offering a raw, honest mirror into our own lives." Unquote. To be honest, I haven't always been a nonfiction essay reading type of gal, at least not recreationally. Honestly though, it's not surprising that I've gotten here. All through uni, no matter how much paper writing season stressed me out, final term papers were my favorite assignments of the semester. Everything from brainstorming and doing the research and making my words sound right, to the satisfaction of having a finished product that I was proud of. In general, in my reading practice, I usually still prefer fiction, but I found some real gems of personal nonfiction work, especially of late, and I'm so excited to share reading this collection with you all. One last thing I will note is that if you're interested in reading part of the collection, but you want to steer clear of certain topics, please feel free to shoot me a message and I can filter out the ones you might want to avoid. Because some of the topics Perkins goes into are quite sensitive, I thought it good for me to read the entire collection in full before deciding if it was the right pick to share reading for the show. And I think it really is. There's so much good in here, and I hope that my bringing it to your attention proves to be worth it. But anyway, for today, let's truck on and lighten our load for a bit. Today, as we're coming into the final month of the year, what I want to talk about is reading goals and wants for the new year. I don't really believe in making strict plans about what I want to read and when. This is more of a reading wish list for 2023. Involved in it, though, is a bit of a confession. This talk will double as an exposure on some of the books I have that I feel bad, almost guilty, for not having read yet, because of how long I've had them sitting there, waiting while others come and go. Maybe my bringing them back to my own attention will officially, truly put them on my to-be-read soon list for the new year. It is really easy for me to buy books, to convince myself that I have to buy it now, not later, not wait for the library. They're one of my weak spots. As I've said before, they're one of those things that some people would consider to be too expensive to dish out money on, but I have a really hard time keeping myself from doing so. I can hold myself back on shoes and clothing and TV streaming services and the little knickknacks to put on my shelves and cute stuffed animals, in spite of the store I work in carrying some of the cutest damn things I've ever seen. But keeping myself from buying books is a skill of self-control I've had a really hard time beating into myself. I'm still not very good at it. I'm doing a little bit better, but I'm not great. Sometimes I think it's really healthy for me to go back and look at the books already on my shelves, to remind myself what's there, and to reread their summaries or their first few pages. And sometimes just to go for it. Tell myself, this is what I'm reading this week. No exceptions. That's also part of why it's good for me to keep a record of specific books I'd like to read soon, in no particular order, in no dedicated or required time frame, but a reminder of what's there, because my shelves are stacked. I can't even see all the titles and spines at once. There are a lot of books I bought during the course of my degree, and a lot of other titles by the authors we read for a class, and they tend to slide to my back burner a little bit because I bought them more based on the author instead of the summary or the story. I have a lot of books that I knew other people were reading for coursework, classes that I never ended up taking myself, but peeped at the book lists out of curiosity. I'm also so weak for a good book sale. As much as this habit plagues me, I hope my feelings, my experiences, are something that you can understand too as a bookie. But maybe I just need a fraction more self-control. If all you do is judge me today, I accept it. I've earned it. Thank you. What I'd like to do in the new year is to give myself a challenge each month. Kind of like those reading bingo cards that you see sometimes floating around on social media that give you a theme or a topic or a genre, and leave it to you which book you want to read to fulfill the challenge with. So in 2023, I want to do this. Not necessarily give myself a set out list of these specific books in these specific months, but themes and topics that I want to find out more about, genres that I want to try to get into, and so on. I also think I'd like to start a small list of specific titles that I've been meaning to read for years and feeling like I realistically should, and try to read at least one of them a month as well, in no specified order. I have 2 more goals for the new year for my reading. One, I want to read a variety this year. I want to read more nonfiction and memoirs. I want to read more from diverse voices. And I even want to read more for a variety of audiences. Because I work in children's literature and I love the feeling of knowing what I'm recommending to people, it's something that is really important to me as a worker and as a reader. And so that's where I'd like to be. Lastly, I want to take more time to reread. Because as I've talked about before, rereading is one of my greatest joys. Sometimes I really try to set rereads aside because of the sheer volume of books that I haven't yet read. But I've been thinking especially that if I get into reading slumps this year, or even just periods of the year where I don't really have time to focus on something new and dedicate enough of my attention to it, I want to fall back on a reread. Kind of like having a fallback comfort TV show or movie, something that doesn't take up too much of my attention, something that I know the story of and can rely more on memory to make my way through, and that I can kind of take on at my leisure. The very last thing I want to do in terms of my reading this year is to make it a stressful or time-sensitive thing. I'm not doing a numbered goal. I don't need to read 52 books this year. I just want to read. So, with all of that set out for us, and regardless of my aversion to specifics and necessities and strict dedications, there are a few specific books that I want to get into this year, ones that have sat for years, with maybe 2 or 3 pages read, or even a bookmark stuck into the middle of them. Considering where I'm at in life, wanting to move, wanting to pare down a bit and make my shelves easier to see and look at and enjoy, this is the year where I want to either read some of these books or say goodbye to them if they aren't for me, or if I read them and decide I don't need to keep them, give them away. Firstly, classics. I buy them on the idea that I really should have read this by now, and then they sit there. I stare at them. I consider picking them up, and then I pick up something else. This year, I want to read more from the Brontes. I read Jane Eyre in my 3rd year of uni, and I just loved it, without a lot of explanation or justification. For some reason or another, it hit me hard and stuck itself into my heart, and there's something about it that I just still can't get out. It's quite an undertaking, as a lot of classics are, because I find that they involve a different type of reading than we're used to these days. But for me, it was worth it. For anyone unfamiliar, Jane Eyre is by Charlotte Bronte, published in 1847, and it's a bit of a coming-of-age tale about a young girl-to-woman who starts from nothing, faces a lot of obstacles, and fights her way up to have the comforts of a good life. It is, on its surface, a romance novel, but it tells so much more about women's individualism and independence, and was considered pretty ahead of its time in terms of its approaches to hot topics like class, religion, sexism, and feminism. I loved it. So that's one I always want to reread, but I've been really interested to read Charlotte Bronte's other works, one being Villette, as well as works from the other Bronte sisters. And particularly, I've heard great things about The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. I have it. I bought it quite a while ago, and it's on my list. As for a few other classics I've been meaning to read, one is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Quite a number of my classmates over the years read it for other classes, but I was never in one where I had to, and I've heard so many mixed opinions and mixed reactions to it that I want to form my own opinion. I've also been wanting to read East of Eden by John Steinbeck for a number of years, mostly on the thought that the couple of other Steinbeck novels I've read I really enjoyed. And there's this one single quote that I see around from this one all the time, that even if the book has nothing else going for it, at least that's in there. It's this one. And now that you don't have to be perfect, you can be good. There's something so lovely about that. One more. For one of my classes in my final semester of school, I had to read The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett for my first time ever, and I really loved it. Because of this, I've made it a point to add A Little Princess to my list too. Another genre I'd love to read more from this year is historical fiction or nonfiction memoir. I have quite a few books that are fiction based on true events, and I'm hoping to crack a bit more into these this year. In particular, for either historical fiction or nonfiction, some of my hopefuls are Anatomy by Dana Schwartz, Ravensong by Lee Maracle, Come From Away by Genevieve Graham, and Starlight by Richard Wagamese. Finally, as for a few more trendy hype reads I've been wanting to read and see what all the hype is about, this year I'm hoping to read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid because I loved Daisy Jones and the Six and Malibu Rising, as well as Heartstopper by Alice Oseman and The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I have no idea if I will truly finally get to all these books, or in what order. That's not really what is most important to me. What's most important is that I keep reading fun for myself, and that I'm getting as much as possible out of what I read. I know it's just December, and we've got the whole month and Christmas to go before the new year, but I'm excited for the prospects of a whole fresh start of reading. I'm really excited. I hope you are too. For today, we'll cap it there. Next time we come back together, I'll give you the lowdown on Nichole Perkins and her work, but I think I've said enough for now. I hope that whatever the end of the year throws at you this month, you're ready for it. Until next time, take care and happy reading. The Off the Shelf podcast is a proud member of the Ordinary Podcasting Network. To learn more about this podcast or the network, please visit ordinarypodcast.com. Finally, thank you for listening, and if you haven't already, please subscribe or leave us a comment. Thank you so much, and take care.